My name is David. I live in a small flat in London, living the same busy, monotonous life as everyone else. But for the past 3 years, not a single night has brought me peace. They say time heals all wounds, but some memories aren't wounds. They are poison. They slowly seep into your soul until there's nothing left. Today, I'm going to tell you about a hotel that you won't find on any map. But those who find it never truly come back. It was a cold obsidian night in December. I was driving away from the city, heading toward the ancient, desolate woods of the Cotswolds. The rain was so violent that the road markings vanished beneath the water. Suddenly, my car jerked, and smoke began billowing from the hood. I was stranded, surrounded by nothing but towering ancient trees, and in suffocating silence, I began to walk. The cold was biting into my skin. Then, through the thick fog, a 3-story Victorian building appeared. The Blackwood Inn. The wooden doors were rotting, and the windows looked like hollow eyes staring into the dark. I knocked on the door. It creaked open with a high-pitched moan. Inside, it was pitch black, save for a single flickering yellow bulb at the reception desk. I rang the bell. Silence followed, and then the sound of footsteps descending the stairs. It was the manager. He was unnaturally tall, his face as pale as marble, wearing a tuxedo from a century ago. "David, we've been expecting you," he said in a raspy voice. I froze. I hadn't told him my name. "Room 0, he whispered, handing me a brass key. "At the end of the corridor. And remember, David, do not open your door tonight, no matter whose voice you hear outside." Room 0 was at the very end of a narrow, tilting hallway. The air smelled of decay and damp earth. I locked the door and tried to sleep. At exactly 3 a.m., there was a knock. At first, I thought it was another guest, but then I heard heavy, wet breathing coming from the bottom of the door. Trembling, I leaned in and looked through the keyhole. I couldn't see the hallway. All I saw was a deep, solid red, as if someone had draped a red cloth over the door. I backed away in terror and spent the rest of the night with my eyes wide open. The second night, the storm grew even more violent. Thunder shook the very foundations of the inn. I promised myself I would leave at dawn. Again, at 3 a.m., the knocking returned. But this time, it wasn't coming from the door. It was coming from directly beneath my bed, like long fingernails scratching against old wood. I summoned the courage to look underneath. There was no one there, but on the floor there were wet footprints leading into the center of the bed frame. When I turned back toward my pillow, my heart stopped. On the white fabric were 2 crimson handprints, and they were still wet. I grabbed my bag and bolted down to the lobby. The manager was standing there, exactly where I left him. I screamed at him, "What is in that room? And what was that red screen outside my door?" The manager smiled slowly, and his neck snapped to the side with a sickening crunch. "David, when you looked through the keyhole last night, you saw red, didn't you?" I nodded, paralyzed. He pulled his eyelid open with a bony finger. His entire eye was a deep, bleeding crimson. "That wasn't a screen, David. I was on the other side, looking back into your eye." As I backed away, my hand hit an old photograph on the wall. It was a picture of the manager, dated 1892. He wasn't a man. He was a prisoner of this hotel, waiting for fresh souls for over 100 years. I ran into the rain and never looked back. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw a red light glowing in every single window of that hotel. I returned to my life in London, but the truth is, I never truly left that room. Even today, whenever I am alone in my room, I feel a sudden, cold sense of fear. It's a feeling like someone is standing right behind me, watching my every move from the shadows. I can't explain it, but the silence of my own home now feels heavy, as if the walls are waiting for me to look back. Every time I remember that night, my blood runs cold, because I know some things don't stay in the past. They follow you home.